Yo, what's up? This is our last day in Nice, and we just wrapped up filming some really cool people portraits, as well as Belle was part of a really big TV documentary. And now I want to talk to you about something else, and this is this right here. A little while ago I sold my EF70-200 2.8 because I wanted to switch to the RF version, and then we rented out the RF version for about a week for a couple of shoots. And then after using it, although it is an amazing lens, we actually came to the conclusion that we won't buy it because it has one fatal flaw. And in this video I want to talk to you about what that fatal flaw is, as well as some little comparisons between the EF version and the RF version. My name is Damien Cooper, and welcome to Monkey Pixels. So first of all, let's establish what we actually use this lens for. Basically, we use this for pretty much everything, as a close-up angle on our interview setups, but also for B-roll in general. But most of the times we actually got this lens for sports photography, and Belle, her forte is figure skating. So she's shooting a lot of portraits when it comes to figure skating. That was take number 5, and walking up the stairs with a heavy camera like this is actually exhausting. And that is actually a perfect segue to comparing these two lenses and giving some advantages to the one lens and disadvantages to the other. So let's just start with the comparison in general. The EF version is obviously a lot heavier. It's also a lot bigger than the RF version. And that is probably the biggest selling point of the RF version because it's really tiny and it's lightweight, and that makes for a really great travel companion. Especially when using the lens on one of the new mirrorless cameras, the lens gets even longer due to the adapter. So that point definitely goes to the RF version. When it comes to the overall functionality of both lenses, I really don't think there's a big difference. When it comes to the autofocus as well as the image stabilization, I at least couldn't tell any difference. The RF lens does have a control ring, but you can actually use an adapter with a control ring on the EF version as well, so there's really not a big difference here. Another huge difference is obviously the mount. Where the RF version features an RF mount, the EF version obviously features an EF mount. And where this could be seen as an advantage for the RF version because it's a newer mount, you have more flexibility when it comes to future cameras, and it also has more electronic pins, so you might actually implement some features on future cameras that the EF version just doesn't have. Although, like I already said, I don't think that's a problem right now. It's also obviously a disadvantage in some situations because we obviously use the C300 Mark III a lot as well, and with the RF version we can't use it at all. So for us this is somewhat of a no-go, but you might be different and you only have a mirrorless camera, the R5 or the R6, so this obviously isn't a deal breaker for you. For us it's kind of a deal breaker because we sold our EF version before the C300 Mark III even came out, and I was hoping it would actually feature an RF mount, which in hindsight it doesn't. But again, this isn't even the biggest deciding factor here. Another big difference is obviously the price. Here in Europe, the EF version retails for about 1,750 euros plus taxes, whereas the RF version comes in at a whopping 2,400 euros plus taxes. And that is pretty much a big difference. So now let's stop wasting any more time and let me tell you what I think is the biggest deal breaker when it comes to the RF version and was ultimately the deciding factor for us not to buy it and actually re-buy the EF version instead. The fact that the lens actually protrudes out when zooming is a big deal breaker when it comes to sports photography. When filming these figure skaters, we're used to having only 2 fingers on the zoom ring at all times and then quickly go between 70 to 200 millimeters and therefore have the skaters in frame at all times. And with the RF version, that just wasn't possible for us because it was so hard to go from 70 to 200 millimeters that we really had a hard time doing this. And most of the times, the throw on the zoom ring on the RF version was too much and we either needed the full hand and that was just a little bit exhausting, or you actually needed to rotate the zoom ring even further to go from 70 to 200, and overall that just wasn't really an ideal solution. For a lot of people that actually might not sound like a big deal, but when you spend all day filming and taking pictures of these figure skaters and you can't really keep them in frame all the time, that actually is a no-go. So that was basically the deciding factor for us to go with the EF version instead of the RF version. And that's, well, pretty much it. So my overall recommendation for everyone trying to decide between the EF and the RF version is basically this. If you ever consider using any other camera than an R5, R6 or EOS-R, or well, maybe the Canon C70, then go with the EF version, because the EF mount as it is right now is way more versatile than the RF mount, and you have way more option to use it on other cameras as well. And B, if you are shooting fast-paced sports and a lot of action where you need to keep your subject in frame at all times, the RF version just doesn't cut it, and the EF version, in my opinion, is a way better choice. So basically, go with the EF version and save yourself a little bit of money. So overall, I hope you actually liked this little review and the comparison between the RF and the EF version. And if you did, then hit the like button because it helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more, and I hope to see you on the next one.